All right, we are going to get started with our curriculum committee on Thursday, December 16th. The first thing on our agenda is to hear some updates from our SLLs, or our student learning liaisons. So who's going to start us off?
I can do some introductions and then I'll turn it over to the team. We have, as you know, a robust teacher leader group, SLL, Student Learning Liaison. Last year, I think we had a presentation from a reading SLL, a Fayette SLL, and one more SLL. And this year we asked 3 different SLLs to join us. So Sam is here representing 6 through 12 art. Heather is here to represent 6 through 8 family and consumer sciences, business ed, and tech ed. And Barb is here to represent elementary music. We met pre-game and we talked about sharing their views. What does it look like to be an SLL every day, every week, every month, and how their work supports adults and students. And that was the only things that we talked about. And I'd like to turn it over to the team and thank you for being here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will start us off. Okay, so Samantha Dealey, hello. Thank you for having me. But so as far as the role of the SLL, in a nutshell, what the role means to me is advocating for the art department and sort of implementing what we learn from a district basis and making sure that we are communicating efficiently with all of the secondary art teachers and elementary when we are all together. The importance of the role, like I said, advocating for the department, but we've really focused on standards-based learning within the district the past few years and being able to implement and share what I am learning throughout our SLL meets and meeting with Pam and sharing it with the people has been very helpful. How the role of the SLL has impacted student learning for me. I did share a document with you all on what we have been working on during our PLC time, which this is actually a digital document in which any of these areas you're able to click on. So this is like the general layout of one of our art classes offered at the high school. And this setup of art projects and standards will also be implemented at the middle school with their standards. So on the first page, you'll see a lot of the projects and steps that we take throughout the semester. And then on the bottom of that page, we have our power standards for the class. And those are directly from the Wisconsin Art Standards, Wisconsin Standards of Art and Design. So we make sure to have all of those power standards within our projects and activities. And then when you click on each of the tabs within that first page, you'll see this last 3 pages are what those pages would look like. So we generally land our standard on the top so you know where we're pulling from. And then we have the learning targets, so the big idea and the success criteria. And then assess the students on the success criteria. And then general overview of the project, and if there's an assessment for that particular thing, we have it there. So we have a couple different examples of those. And I feel like this has helped both adults and students, A, with organization, B, with making sure that we are implementing our standards and following standards-based learning. And I think having the specific success criteria makes it easier to assess the students on those specific targets rather than the stereotypical, oh, it looks good or it looks bad. Because with art, it's really difficult to assess sometimes. So having the specific success criteria has been really helpful. So that's what I have been working on as the SL. This is my 2nd year in the position. And I have definitely learned a lot and really appreciate the organization that the PLC has provided for us. Yeah.
That's right up your alley.
Sure is. I will not deny that.
I can go next. I'm Barb Saudi. I'm the elementary music SLL. And for me, this is my third year in the role. And a lot like what Sam was saying, a lot of it is to advocate and communicate both ways so that teachers know what the district is asking and they know what our needs are. But I'm also a listener. And I think that's a big part of that SLL role is people can come to you, they know that they can ask you questions. And sometimes if they're having concerns, I sometimes have to say, are you telling me this because you just need to tell someone, or do you need me to help you through something? And that is something that I really had to develop, that ability to ask those questions. And that has been a good thing for our department. I'm the point of contact is kind of what I look at as the SLL. And again, it's that assisting in the professional learning community, that PLC process. When my first year in the role, we unpacked our new standards. The state had just started developing some new standards. I went to several workshops from the Wisconsin Music Educators Association, brought that knowledge back. I worked with Pam, Lori helped us out, and we were able to take a look at what looked like very scary new standards, and we were able to break them down into a way that made sense. And we could make connections between the old standards and the new standards. And from that knowledge, we were then able to select out our essential standards that were going to be the ones that without these, we can't move on. Kids can't move on musically. And then the next year, we took those essential standards and developed some success criteria, broke them down a little bit further into what skills and knowledge do the kids have to have. And as a team, we were able to really work through a lot of those things during our in-service days is when we did a majority of that work. And then this last year, we finally turned that into the language that we have on our report cards. We hashed through it and said, okay, if this is what we want kids to be able to do, how do we explain that to parents in a way that they can understand? Last year was the first opportunity we as elementary music teachers had to really meet as a consistent PLC with our Wednesday half days that we had. It's probably the one good thing that came out of COVID last year. And because of that, we were able to really align our curriculum across the different buildings. We always kind of felt like we were our own little islands. And part of that growth in the PLC process was having to really come up with what are our guidelines going to be? What are our norms going to be? And enforcing those norms. That is a role that the SLL kind of has to take on at times too. So just enforcing the norms. And this year, the work that we're planning on doing is the secondary music SLL and I are working at trying to align K-12, instrumental, vocal, and general music, with an understanding of when kids leave Manitowoc Public School District, we feel confident that if they want to go on in a career in music, they can. If they just want to be an observer of musical performances, they will have a greater appreciation. And so we're working and guiding our department to try and establish some of those things. And it's very interesting because we no longer see it as these are our elementary kids, these are our middle school kids, and these are our high school kids. The SLL process has really allowed us to see ourselves aligned K-12. And just being able to facilitate and coordinate when somebody needs help. They'll come to me and I'll say, well, let's see if we can find somebody within our department who can help you with that. Let's see if we can do those types of things that were not always available when we had only a secondary department head.
Assistant that's on here. So some of the things that I have to say are the same as them. So my name is Heather Kunich. And as Jason said, I am the middle school CTE student learning liaison. And so that's tech ed, business education, and then failing consumer ed. And so I'm gonna switch it up and go backwards. So I'm gonna do the second question first. And how does our role impact student learning with students and adults? And so kind of what Barb was saying too, kind of getting thrown into the standards-based grading. And so what does that look like on our teams and walking them through that process? Because it's, at first it's COVID, we're at home, we're going to implement standards-based grading, and kind of walking through that process in the PLC process with them in our department days of what does it look like for standards-based grading in all three of our classes? Knowing that there's similarity between our classes, right? We all, in the three categories we all teach some sort of measurement, but measurement in the foods room is going to be different than measurement in tech ed and measurement in business ed. And so talking about that within our department, and then going into our classrooms and collaborating a lot cross-town. So Wilson collaborating with Washington, because I'm the only foods teacher at Wilson, but then collaborating with my partner over at Washington. And I would say the SL role to me and the importance of it, like you guys both said, but the communication aspect, right? So if they come to me, someone on my team comes to me with a concern or a question or whatever it is, like you said so perfectly, like listening to them and seeing like what is the outcome that we want from this. And if needed, kind of giving them some questions, some problem solving techniques. If need be, maybe we go to Jason or Pam to get some additional help there. And then vice versa with the SL meetings that we have every single month. We get information from Jason and Pam and everyone else on the team to bring back to our team so that everyone can be on the same page, and not have those gaps of communication between the buildings. And then I would say too, a big thing is just advocating for our departments, what we need, and then leading those professional development days and helping them in everyone's professional development day looks a little different. So a lot of ours has been focused on standards-based grading and what does that look like in each department, creating those learning targets for each lesson and common assessments and all that fun stuff. So.
Any questions for the team?
I don't. It's pretty thorough.
Yeah, but we appreciate the insight, we hear SLL a lot, and it's good to get a better grasp on what that role function is. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
You're welcome to stay, but don't feel obligated, please. Thank you.
They're all
Yeah, really.
No, that
Well, there's a lot of art classes in the middle.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thanks, you guys.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then Lance, you're up to talk about some course proposals.
Yes. Before I get started with that, I just wanted to take a minute on behalf of the staff at the middle schools. I want to thank you, Kathy, and Meredith for your service to our district, our staff, and our students. We appreciate it. And we're grateful for it and for you. So thank you. So I believe you have in front of you 4 proposals. If it's okay, I would just like to say a few words in general about these proposals and then go into the specifics of what our department has asked for. So the first thing I would say is, in general, over the last 3 years of 2.5 years of middle school, we've learned that when students sign up for art class, which tends to be one of our more popular elective classes, they're really they kind of fit into 2 different categories. And so the proposals here are an effort to respond to that student interest and need. And those two categories are basically the kind of art where you're working with a touch screen, a mouse, and a keypad, maybe a camera or a GoPro. And then the other kind of art would be the art where you need an apron because you're about to get dirty. You're working with clay and paint and things like that. And so really what we're seeing here is an effort to kind of address those two interest levels. There's also a third category of students that want both. So we do see that too. So these proposals really try to simplify, make it easier in the course selection process for students to meet those needs. At the same time, as a middle school art class, it provides, classes need to provide a survey of the media that the students are kind of self-selecting there. And finally, I would say what you'll see in these proposals is that our art teachers, our art department are thinking toward readiness. In case of a middle school, they want to make sure that our students are getting prepared for becoming artists in high school. So that's kind of a general outline, and we can start to go through these kind of detail by detail, one by one. The first proposal is for a course to be named Art 7. And it's a replacement for a course that we currently have called Art Around the World. As you might guess, it's geared towards 7th graders. It is, in this form, it asks for credits. At middle school, we typically, our courses are not non-credit bearing, but it will be a typical elective in the sense that it's either every other day or semester in length. It would not require a prerequisite at all. So I would just draw your attention to the bottom box on the first page there, the rationale, and then a few bullets about that. The art department is looking, this would be like our art class where you're gonna get your hands dirty, you're gonna be drawing 3D art, 2D art. It gives students an opportunity to explore those various media. They'll have some choice within the content, but primarily we want to get some basic art skills. So if we turn to the next page, at the top there, it just talks about how the goal here is if students want to start in 7th grade with Art 7, they can take a sequence and be in that world of 2D, 3D art, specializing in it, and they can use that to bypass exploring art, which is the beginning art class for high school. So they could go on to exploring art 2 or courses like drawing, painting, printing, ceramics, metals, fibers. We have a course description, which just kind of summarizes what we've said there. I would also point out that the anticipated startup costs, we left those blank because they are 0. Ongoing costs, we don't believe there would be extra costs that wouldn't be handled except for within the building budgeting process. I would pause there if there are any questions about Art 7.
I don't have any.
Good. So if we could turn now to Art 8, the things I have to say about Art 8 are very similar to what we said about Art 7. It fits into that sequence of art that is kind of that hands-on. We're working with paint, pencils, and clay, but at a higher level than in Art 7 because this is geared towards 8th graders. But you can, if you didn't take Art 7, you'd still be able to sign up for an Art 8 class.
So they won't be mixing grades then?
No, because our elective periods at this point don't.
Right, they don't drive, yeah. Okay.
And then I think we have essentially the same course description and rationale.
So if a person takes Art 7 and Art 8, is there a lot of repetition, or is it like repeated but at a higher level, or is it like different types of things?
It's different kinds of similar media, but different projects
Okay.
within the media. So at that more, the teachers will have the ability to kind of differentiate between a student who has taken Art 7 and is ready to move on to something a little more advanced, as well as have, in the same class, have students that are taking, art for the first time.
Okay.
But it's, we listed here on the first page, it's a replacement for Art Studio, which is that more differentiated art.
Okay.
So.
Do you have questions on that one, Kathy?
Nope, totally get all of it.
Huh?
I totally get all this.
Okay, good. I'm glad you do. All right, on to the next.
Okay, so these are, these next two courses kind of fit into that first category of design or digital art. It has become one of the more popular art classes. Students are interested in animation or photography, kind of manipulating photographs, sometimes even doing some, video as well. So this is also a sequence class, and Digital Art and Design 1 is the first step in that sequence. It's available to 7th and 8th grade students, so if you didn't take Digital Art and Design in your 7th grade year, you could still take the first class in the sequence in the 8th grade year. If we just look at the rationale for this proposal, the idea is we know now after a couple years what kinds of projects students are interested in and what our staff and our equipment is capable of doing, and so it's kind of consolidating and simplifying that into a course. So it's an introduction in the first sequence, and in the second step it is again that kind of advanced work in art and design, thinking that the students will be kind of launching into the same comparable classes when they get to high school, whether it be photography or design.
So Digital Art and Design 1, you might have a 7th grade Digital Art and Design 1 and then an 8th grade Digital Art and Design 1,
Yes.
right? Okay, so a little bit different than the Art 7-8,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, slightly different. And the last course proposal is the Digital Art and Design 2. That's going to be available only to 8th graders, and the prerequisite is that you took, the students took Digital Art and Design 1 in their 7th grade year.
So I do have some questions now though, Lance.
Yeah.
So, for example, if a student were to take, say, 1 and 2, what is the next step for them up at Lincoln in relation to the computer type classes?
Right. I don't know the Lincoln Course of Study Bulletin as well as I used to, but I know that typically students that are coming from middle school are signing up for classes like photography, and that might be something that they get exposed to in middle school and have more of an interest in. I do think they've added some different capabilities at Lincoln so that they can do more of a design class too. Do you have?
I believe there's some graphic arts that this would feed right into.
Okay. Trying to think what class it is, but I can't think of the name of it though, but I know who taught it.
Yeah,
But I'm just thinking if that's the natural progression then.
Yeah.
Do we ever try to tie these into like our computer science type classes where they're like working on coding or software or anything? I mean, there's some relationship there that could be explored anyway.
yeah, I think what we're seeing is a similar kind of two, not track, but two pathways in art.
Right.
And so that more traditional, not traditional, more hands-on, put your apron on, are things like Sam Dealey
Yes.
are navigating at Lincoln. The more digital is John Dorn. See some things that bleed into the yearbook, some photography, some graphic arts. And then there is really a third prong that's not art,
Right.
but it is
It's
like
very
Project
related.
Lead the Way, right? And we're seeing a growth in Project Lead the Way, which we talked about at college, career, and community readiness, some of those courses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's fine art, I like the hands-on apron stuff.
Yes, thank you. So I think it just kind of branches out, you know,
Yeah.
at the high school level.
Yep.
More,
I can see
more,
that.
more specific, correct?
Mhm.
And we do at middle school level, we've got this, you know, the kind of planting the seeds for Project Lead the Way in the business department. And we'll see some animation stuff happening in those classes because get to explore those interests more. And then over the course of the 3 years, we hope that they, you know, they kind of refine those interests and help the, you know, we can kind of guide them on any of those pathways towards high school.
So if we're set, Kathy, this is a little weird because there's just two of us here, but if you want to make a motion that we.
I would be happy to
forward
make a
these
motion should we do them as a lump sum? So all
Yeah,
four?
let's do all four of them
I'm good with
together.
that. I'd like to make a motion for acceptance of all four of the new art proposals.
Okay, and I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye. There you
All
go.
right, we're good, and we'll forward that to the greater board at our next meeting.
Yes.
So, awesome, thank
It came
you.
at an extra
Thank you.
easy time when one out of two of them is from the art department.
Right. Yeah, you kind of had a slam dunk over here.
It's like kinda hard not to. Well, I get it. I see how students say they're going expecting the hands-on experience or, you know, the computer experience.
Yeah.
Related but very different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. All right, and again, you know, you're welcome to stay, but, you know, up to you. Well, I guess, you know, I'm not your boss, so, you know. Indirectly.
Welcome.
You're welcome to stay. But we're gonna invite Lori to give a K-12 math update, yes?
I'll just, it's
Just
just an
kidding.
update about.
I didn't mean to panic you.
No, it's
I'm
all
sorry.
good. It's all good.
I could have done it. I know what's happening.
I think it was in a November meeting where we talked about some things that we could continue to think about on 6-12 mathematics. And I still have my post-it note from that meeting, and the things that we talked about were to look at some criteria, some possible criteria for entrance into compacted math. One of the things that I wrote down here was we talk about the word enrichment, but what does that really mean in mathematics? And then pathways to those upper level courses in mathematics if we did not have compacted math at the middle level. And then the fourth thing was, what is the professional development pieces that we would really have to ensure if we didn't have that compacted math? So the update tonight is just that Lori Williams and I met with the middle level math coaches and talked through those four things. And they are currently working on all those pieces for us, minus the pathways. We'll take care of that. And we'll be ready for the January curriculum committee to present that and talk through it with the team. So I just didn't want you to think about where that's falling. So I wanted to give you that quick update.
Great. All right, that's the end of our agenda.
Wow.
I think that's the fastest meeting in 2 years.
Wow.
Fantastic. Well,
Make a motion with.
yeah, right? Do you have any questions for Jason on that?
I don't know. I appreciate you letting us know that we're going to see more of it in January. Yeah, that'll be great.
And then if you want to make
I
a
will be
motion?
happy to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, and then I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Very good. Well, thanks, everybody.
that's a little crazy.
I know. I think this
Just
is
say
the
that's
last
awesome.
meeting that we have people that, oh, no, there's one more. Just kidding. Just
Well,
kidding.
we'll